Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative philosophers of the modern era, challenged conventional wisdom on many fronts. His ideas on power, strength, and human will continue to resonate today. One of his most radical perspectives suggests that excessive arguing is not a sign of intellectual superiority, but rather a weakness. Why would a thinker known for his sharp critiques dismiss arguing as a pursuit of the weak? Let's explore Nietzsche's philosophy and understand why he might see endless debate as a symptom of powerlessness rather than strength. Imagine a world where debates dominate every conversation, where winning an argument seems like the pinnacle of intelligence. But have you ever stopped to consider, is arguing truly a sign of strength, or could it be a mask for something deeper, perhaps even weakness? Today we dive into the profound ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative thinkers in history, to unravel why arguing, in his eyes, is often the refuge of the weak. By the end of this journey, you'll not only question how you handle conflict, but might also see human interaction in a completely new light. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges many societal norms, and his view on arguing is no exception. He believed that strength lies not in the ability to dominate a conversation or win a debate, but in the courage to stand firm in your convictions, even in silence. For Nietzsche, those who constantly argue are often compensating for something they lack, a sense of inner clarity or self-assuredness. To explore this idea, we must first understand his broader view of human nature and the dynamics of power. Let's start with a question. Why do we argue? Is it to prove a point, assert dominance, or perhaps to defend our sense of self? Nietzsche would argue that at the heart of most disputes lies a fragile ego, a need to validate oneself through the submission or agreement of others. This, he believed, was a hallmark of weakness. Strong individuals, on the other hand, do not need external validation. They are content with their truths, unshaken by the dissent of others. In his masterpiece, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche introduces the concept of the overman, or Übermensch, a figure who transcends societal norms and lives authentically. The overman does not engage in trivial disputes. Why? Because their focus is on self-overcoming, not on proving themselves to others. Nietzsche believed that those who constantly argue are stuck in what he called ressentiment, a state of reactive energy where one defines oneself in opposition to others rather than through one's own values. This reactive mode of living is inherently weak, as it places control of one's emotions and identity in the hands of external forces. Think about the last argument you had. Was it truly about the topic at hand, or was there a deeper emotional undercurrent, perhaps a need to be seen as intelligent, right, or worthy? Nietzsche would say that the strongest individuals are those who can recognize this impulse and resist it. Instead of reacting, they reflect. Instead of arguing, they rise above. This does not mean Nietzsche advocated for passivity or silence in the face of injustice, quite the opposite. He valued action over words. For him, strength was in demonstrating your values through your life and choices, not through empty rhetoric. The truly powerful do not need to convince others of their beliefs. They embody them. They understand that arguing rarely changes minds. It only entrenches positions. As Nietzsche wrote, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will often be lonely and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This idea is particularly relevant in today's world, where social media amplifies every disagreement, turning minor differences into full-blown conflicts. Nietzsche's perspective reminds us to ask, what am I trying to achieve here? Is this argument worth my energy, or am I simply reacting to the expectations of others? His philosophy challenges us to step back, to focus on building our inner strength instead of tearing others down. But what does it mean to build inner strength? For Nietzsche, it starts with self-knowledge. He believed that most people are not fully aware of their motives, fears, and desires. Without this awareness, we become slaves to external forces, easily provoked and manipulated. Inner strength, on the other hand, comes from a deep understanding of oneself. It is the ability to remain grounded and unshaken, regardless of external chaos. Nietzsche's critique of arguing also extends to the concept of truth. He believed that absolute truth is an illusion, a construct created by humans to make sense of the world. If truth is subjective, then what's the point of arguing over it? For Nietzsche, the pursuit of personal truth, your own truth, was far more important than debating universal truths. He encouraged individuals to explore their values, beliefs, and purpose, rather than conforming to societal norms or seeking validation through arguments. This idea is both liberating and challenging. It requires us to let go of the need to be right, to embrace uncertainty, and to focus on self-discovery. Nietzsche's philosophy pushes us to ask, who am I beyond my arguments? What do I stand for? Am I living authentically, or am I merely reacting to the expectations of others? As we close this section, consider this. The next time you feel the urge to argue, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this an opportunity to assert my ego, or can I use this moment to grow? Nietzsche's wisdom invites us to see arguments not as battles to be won, but as mirrors reflecting our inner state. The question is, what will you see when you look into that mirror? Let's take this a step further by exploring Nietzsche's profound insight into power dynamics and how they influence human behavior. At the heart of his philosophy is the concept of the will to power. Nietzsche saw this as the fundamental driving force behind all human actions, not merely the desire to survive, but to thrive, grow, and assert oneself in the world. However, he believed that true power comes not from controlling others, but from mastering oneself. This distinction is critical when we consider why people argue. In most cases, arguments stem from a misguided attempt to assert dominance or control over someone else's perspective. But what Nietzsche found deeply troubling about this behavior is that it often masks an internal void, a lack of self-assurance, clarity, or purpose. People argue not because they are strong, but because they feel threatened, incomplete, or insecure. To illustrate this, Nietzsche often criticized what he called herd mentality. The herd represents individuals who conform to societal norms and seek validation through collective agreement. They argue to reinforce their place within the group, to prove their loyalty to shared beliefs, or to silence dissenting voices that challenge their comfort zones. For Nietzsche, this was a sign of weakness. The truly strong individual, the overman, does not need the approval of the herd. They live by their own values, even when those values go against the grain. Now, let's examine how this plays out in everyday life. Consider the countless debates that unfold online, where arguments often devolve into personal attacks and endless loops of rebuttal. These interactions rarely lead to meaningful understanding or resolution. Instead, they reveal the deep insecurities of the participants, their need to be right, to feel superior, or to avoid vulnerability. Nietzsche's perspective challenges us to see these moments for what they truly are: distractions from the real work of self-improvement and self-mastery. So how does one break free from this cycle? Nietzsche would argue that it begins with a radical shift in focus, from external validation to internal growth. Instead of expending energy trying to convince others, channel that energy into becoming a more authentic and resilient version of yourself. This requires courage. The courage to face your fears, confront your flaws, and embrace the discomfort of change. It also requires humility, the willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers and that your perspective is just one of many. But let's be clear, Nietzsche was not advocating for isolation or disengagement from the world. He believed that meaningful relationships and intellectual exchanges are essential for personal growth. However, these interactions should be rooted in mutual respect and a shared desire to explore deeper truths, not in a need to dominate or belittle. When we approach conversations with curiosity instead of defensiveness, we create space for genuine connection and understanding. At this point, you might be wondering, if arguing is often a sign of weakness, what does true strength look like in a disagreement? For Nietzsche, it's not about winning the argument, but about transcending it. Strong individuals listen with an open mind, engage with ideas rather than egos, and remain grounded in their values even when challenged. They don't shy away from difficult conversations, but neither do they feel compelled to prove their worth through confrontation. True power lies in self-mastery, and that is a lesson worth reflecting on. The weak tend to impose their values on others rather than rising above their limitations. This raises an important question: how can we engage with others without falling into the trap of argumentation? Unlike arguments, which are adversarial and aimed at winning, dialogues are collaborative and aimed at understanding. In a dialogue, both parties approach the conversation with humility and a willingness to learn. They are not trying to assert dominance, but to explore ideas together. Take, for example, a disagreement between two friends about a deeply held belief. In an argument, each friend would dig in their heels, refusing to budge and escalating the tension. But in a dialogue, they might ask each other questions, share their experiences, and seek common ground. The result is not only a deeper understanding of each other, but also personal growth for both individuals. Nature's disdain for arguing is not a call to avoid conflict altogether. Conflict, when approached constructively, can be a powerful catalyst for growth, but he challenges us to rise above petty disputes and focus on what truly matters: the pursuit of excellence, authenticity, and a life lived on our terms. This requires a shift in mindset, from seeing others as adversaries to seeing them as fellow travelers on the journey of life. To put this into practice, consider N's idea of the eternal recurrence. He asks us to imagine living our lives over and over again, with every moment repeating infinitely. This thought experiment forces us to confront the choices we make and the values we uphold. Would you want to spend eternity locked in trivial arguments, or would you rather devote your life to something more meaningful? This perspective can be transformative. It reminds us that time is our most precious resource, and that every moment spent arguing is a moment lost to more fulfilling pursuits. Instead of engaging in fruitless debates, we can choose to invest our energy in creating, learning, and connecting with others on a deeper level. N's philosophy also challenges us to reconsider our relationship with truth. He famously declared, "There are no facts, only interpretations." This does not mean that truth is meaningless, but that it is always shaped by perspective. When we argue, we often assume that our perspective is the only valid one, dismissing others as wrong or misguided. But nature invites us to embrace the complexity of truth and to recognize that multiple perspectives can coexist. This shift in perspective can profoundly change how we approach disagreements. Instead of seeing them as threats to our worldview, we can see them as opportunities to expand our understanding. We can listen without defensiveness, question without hostility, and learn without fear. And yet, nature's teachings go even deeper. He challenges us to not only transcend arguments, but also to transcend ourselves. This is the essence of self-overcoming, the relentless pursuit of becoming more than we are. It is about shedding the layers of fear, doubt, and ego that hold us back and embracing the courage to live authentically. As we near the end of this section, consider the power of silence in the face of conflict. N believed that silence could be a form of strength, a refusal to be drawn into the pettiness of argumentation. It is not the silence of submission, but the silence of self-assuredness, the silence of someone who knows their worth and does not need to prove it. Reflect on this the next time you are tempted to argue. Pause and ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? Is this moment an opportunity for growth, or am I simply reacting to my ego's demands? Nature's philosophy invites us to choose the path of strength, wisdom, and self-overcoming, even when it is the harder path. As we prepare to delve into the final layer of N's ideas, we will explore how his philosophy offers not just a critique of arguing, but a blueprint for living a more purposeful and fulfilling life. The insights we uncover could transform not only how we interact with others, but also how we view ourselves and the world around us. As we reach the culmination of N's perspective on arguing, we are left with one of his most profound insights. The idea that strength is not about overpowering others, but about mastering oneself. This mastery goes beyond merely avoiding arguments. It is about living in a way that reflects inner clarity, purpose, and resilience. N believed that true strength is quiet, unyielding, and grounded in the individual's ability to rise above the noise of the world. To fully understand this, let's revisit N's concept of the overman. The overman represents the pinnacle of human potential, a person who has transcended societal expectations, overcome personal limitations, and embraced life in all its complexity. For N, the overman does not engage in arguments because they have no need to. Their life is their argument. Their actions, values, and achievements speak louder than any words ever could. In today's world, this idea may feel counterintuitive. We live in an age of constant communication, where opinions are shared, debated, and dissected at lightning speed. Social media, news platforms, and public discourse often prioritize volume over depth, making it easy to mistake loudness for strength. But N's philosophy challenges us to step back from this chaos and focus on what truly matters, our own journey of growth and self-discovery. So how can we apply N's wisdom to our daily lives? First, we must recognize that not every disagreement requires our participation. When faced with a potential argument, we can ask ourselves, is this truly worth my energy? Does engaging in this debate align with my values and goals, or is it a distraction? N believed that choosing when and how to engage is a hallmark of strength. It shows that we are not slaves to our impulses, but masters of our actions. Second, we can strive to approach disagreements with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Instead of trying to prove our point, we can seek to understand the other person's perspective. This does not mean abandoning our beliefs, but being open to the possibility that we might learn something new or see the world in a different way. Nature valued intellectual courage, the willingness to question one's own assumptions and embrace complexity. Third, we can focus on embodying our values rather than arguing for them. This means living in a way that reflects what we stand for, even in the face of opposition. N believed that authenticity is far more powerful than rhetoric. When we live authentically, we inspire others not through words but through the example we set. Let's bring this back to N's larger vision of life. At its core, his philosophy is about embracing the challenges and uncertainties of existence with courage and creativity. He believed that life is not a problem to be solved, but a canvas on which to create meaning. Arguing in this context is a distraction from the real work of life, the work of becoming who we are meant to be. One of N's most famous ideas is the concept of amor fati, or love of fate. This is the idea that we should embrace everything that happens to us, the joys and the sorrows, the successes and the failures, as necessary parts of our journey. By adopting this mindset, we can approach conflicts with a sense of equanimity. Instead of seeing disagreements as obstacles, we can see them as opportunities to grow, learn, and strengthen our character. This brings us to perhaps the most powerful lesson of all, the idea that strength is not about avoiding conflict, but about transforming it. When we approach disagreements with wisdom, humility, and a commitment to growth, we can turn even the most challenging interactions into moments of transformation. We can rise above the petty need to win and instead focus on what truly matters, building relationships, fostering understanding, and living authentically. As we close this journey into N's philosophy, let us reflect on the deeper truths he offers. Arguing, as he saw it, is often a sign of weakness, not because it is inherently wrong, but because it distracts us from the greater task of self-overcoming. True strength lies not in dominating others, but in mastering ourselves. So the next time you find yourself tempted to argue, pause and consider N's words. Ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? What does this moment reveal about my own insecurities or desires? And how can I use this experience to grow, to learn, and to become a stronger, more authentic version of myself? In the end, N's philosophy is not about avoiding conflict, but about transcending it. It is a call to rise above the noise, embrace the challenges of life with courage and creativity, and live in a way that reflects our highest potential. It is an invitation to become the architects of our own destiny, the creators of our own meaning, and the masters of our own lives. And perhaps that is the ultimate lesson N offers us, that the greatest argument we can ever make is not with words, but with the lives we choose to live.